something to them, I'm sure. That's why they will say that.
Okay, so we'll be talking to some people who, I don't know if we can describe them as feminists. Giftianti, she's a broadcaster and she's a women's rights advocate as well. We'll be talking to Dr. Rose Mensah-Kutin, who is director of Abantu, which is also a women's rights organization. So it'll be interesting to know their perspective to all of this. Let's just start with Nana Konadu Agyemang Rawlings. I'm going to read just a bit of her profile. Well, she was born on November 17, 1948. She schooled at Achimota School, where she met her husband, Jerry John Rawlings. She continued at the University of Science and Technology, where she read art, specializing in textiles. She was a student leader and an executive of her Hall of Residence, the Africa Hall. She married Jerry John Rawlings in 1977, and they had their first child, Zanetta Rawlings, who is now in Parliament. Then they had Yasantua, Amina, and then Kim Murphy. She came into the political limelight when her husband became head of state briefly in 1979, and then from 1981 to 2001. She has been the president of the 31st December Women's Movement since 1982 to date, and she was elected first vice chairperson of her party in 2009 during the second term of her husband. The National Democratic Congress Party's tenure in office under President John Atta Mills, also that was the period that she became the first vice chairperson. She challenged Atta Mills for the party's flag bearership position at the party's Congress in 2011 and lost to him. She's currently the leader of the National Democratic Party, which contested in the just ended election. As to whether or not they did well, maybe Jifan Martha will help us get some analysis from there. Well, when not busy with her family or work, Nana Konadu Agyemang Rawlings enjoys swimming, reading, dancing, camping, and collecting dolls from around the world. She also devotes time and money to such charitable causes at the National Radiopathy Project, Friends of the National Zoo, and the Ghana Girls Guide Association, to name a few. She has an honorary doctorate from Lincoln University in Pennsylvania in 1995. So that is the kind of woman we're talking about, and she has been at the right-hand side of Jerry John Rawlings. Jerry John Rawlings' role in this country's body politic can never, ever, ever, ever be underestimated. I'm going to start with you, Martha. What do you make of her? What are your impressions of Nana Konadu Agyemang Rawlings? A lot of people have said that she's hard.
I agree. In the positive way, she makes impact wherever she goes. I don't want to talk about this elections because and the impact, I'd rather leave that one out.
Oh, we can talk about it.
She was, we'll talk about that one later.
Okay.
She was with former President Jerry John Rawlings throughout the period, and from her, when she talks about that period and what she had to sacrifice, the things she did to keep the family together in the absence of the man of the house, it was impressive for me. The first time I heard about how she had to raise the children all alone because the husband was the president, the father of the land, and was focusing on other things.
But at that point, you have everything at your disposal. I mean, you're the wife of the president, everything that money can buy.
Yes, everything that money can buy, but money cannot buy good grooming. Money cannot bring up the children the way you want, especially if you have morals. And I have not been close to her. I have not worked with her. I have not lived with her. But from afar, I see her as someone with morals. And she will want to imbibe that in her children. And so she won't be the typical woman who has everything at her disposal and so will let other people raise her children. She still wanted to raise her children, and I'm proud of that. I am glad she did that. And that is why perhaps you have some of them turning out to be just like her.
You're talking about Zanetta Rawlings.
Zanetta. So I like the fact that she loves fun.
Okay.
That in her busy schedule, you talk about Ghana Music Awards, she'll be there. And she won't just sit back, she'll be dancing.
Was it not because of politics? I mean, because we knew she was contesting.
Way before she started contesting the flag bearership or the presidential slot for
NDP.
She was always at social functions with her children.
So you see her more as a fun-loving woman.
She is. And I think it is important that Jifa will get some fun. Once a while. I want
Are
Jifa
you communicating a particular message to Jifa?
Exactly. I want
that
Jifa
you found
to
it
have
so
some
difficult.
fun.
But do you have fun yourself, Mother?
it's about Jifa now. I finished. Yes, we have busy schedules. We come here sometimes ungodly hours, but when we have time, she tries, and that is why I think she looks young. Because when you were reading, she likes swimming. She does the things that you don't expect. She collects dolls.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
I'm yet to
seriously,
understand that one. Why would she do that?
Professor Audrey Gajepo does that as well.
Can you imagine
Collecting
another
dolls?
one? See? So behind the toughness, you have the women who love their families, who love to have fun, who support their husbands when the need be, and who take tough decisions when
we'll
they
come
have
to
to
the tough decisions and their role in governance. Well, I mean, supporting their husbands. But Jifa, what are your own initial impressions of this woman?
Nana Konadu Agyemang Rawlings, she's a really different kind of Ghanaian woman. But even before you come to talking about her, you cast your mind back to the first ladies that had been there before her. So for Thaya and Nkrumah, for many people, she was just a beauty, and really never said anything or much
or anything.
Yes, no, I'd rather say much. Never really said much because I wasn't born at that time. But when you see the archival footage, she was everywhere Osajefo was, and even with the children would take them along. There's some iconic pictures of her with Samia, Sekou and Gamal traveling around, pictures of them in Flagstaff House. So I must say, not saying much, it's hard to say what she said or said anything, but she was one of those first ladies that was also in the limelight, though not saying much. And then after that, there was the military, and I must say that with the military rulers, you never exactly get to see their family. Yes, their wives or family. I think it must be part of the fact that they are military rulers, and so they come up with this robust persona. So usually it doesn't exactly, yes, it doesn't include the soft side, which is also part of the family.
Then I think also, before you go, they come in to bridge a certain gap. And so they don't have time for ceremonies to be taking wives along for you to even get to see them. And it was safer for them to do it that way, because you are protecting the family from whatever you...
From what? You are protecting the nation, and you are protecting your family from the nation that you are protecting.
Whenever they step in, it's because there is a crisis, and they needed to work out to bridge that gap. That gap is not often comfortable, and I guess that's why we don't get to see their families.
Isn't it more that military men, you know, they're not really...
in terms of the leaders, no, they are family people, but in terms of for me, I just see it as, because of the timing, it's a robust persona. So obviously, yes, there's no time for ceremony, and so then the family is also kept in the background. Then there's now Mokobuzia, whom not very few people tend to talk about. But yes, she was also there from the discussions I've had with my grandfather, granduncles, and the like. So she was also there as well. But I think Nana Konadu Agyemang Rawlings was the first of the Ghanaian first ladies who took up the decision to be in the spotlight, not just as a beauty or as
appear ceremoniously.
Or appear ceremoniously. She wanted to do something. She wanted to impact people's lives. Our constitution does not carve a role for first lady. So that's one other thing too. So you're first lady, you just come and do what you're supposed to do, which is to be by your husband, support him and all that. But I think for Nana Konadu, she saw that she could do a lot more with the opportunity of being a first lady. And you mentioned in her bio being a student activist. So when you have that kind of background, obviously you can't
be relegated to the background.
You can't sit still and just watch.
So your impression of her is
she's an activist. She's an activist persona.
Okay.
And she seeks to make impact. You know, as to the extent or how sustainable the impact she made is something we can talk about.
Right.
But she sought to make impact. So she was one of those first ladies for Ghana, or the first lady for Ghana for me, who broke away from the typical mold of being a first lady that just comes to ceremonies, that appears when need be. If you have to make a comment, you do so. And then you do the typical things like the soft things, soft politics,
like being in the kitchen,
visiting hospitals.
Nigerian president.
That's something we'll talk about later. So for me, I think she also generated a certain spirit that women can do much more. Ghanaian women, I must say, have always done a lot beyond just being wives and teachers and groomers of the family and the like. But I think she brought this to the fore, that you can be educated, you can be a wife, you can be a mother, and you can have a voice. And not just having a voice, you can impact people's lives. And for me, that is, I think, the legacy of her life.
And it's really significant that the two of you are here talking about this, because you both are mothers. You've got 2?
Yes.
And you've got 3. Okay, but then I wanted to link the two of you and your roles here as, you know, editors, and how hectic it is, and how your schedules are and all of that, and having to manage your own families and manage your own children. Is that the reason why you tend to have, you know, hold these women, this particular woman, for instance, in very high esteem, so that she'll be able to...
Mrs. Rawlings.
Yes.
Oh, she's not the only woman, I would say, that I hold in very high esteem.
But it's very difficult to manage this, is it? I mean, I don't have kids.
Whether you're a politician, it's difficult for working women. Okay. So when I say working women, I don't mean just women who work in the formal sector. I mean women who work in the informal sector as well. Market women, traders. I see some of them in the night. They are sitting at their stall, still trying to sell. They have their kids with them. It's difficult for working women. And also because the economy is not easy. A lot of the time now, men cannot do everything alone anymore. So you really do have to work to support the family. And then it also gives you a sense of fulfillment when you are able to do some work. There's a quote I saw somewhere about why it's important for women to work, because it prevents them from becoming narrow-minded, vindictive, and, you know...
Lazy?
No, not lazy, but more like bitter.
Okay.
That they were not able to do anything more meaningful with their lives, than just cooking, looking after children, and nurturing the home.
Yeah. So then you will say it's impressive that she came out, like you said, she is more like a pioneer in terms of the first lady, the trend that we've seen of first ladies in Ghana.
I think she came out. In terms of being in the spotlight, yes, but there are many others before her who have done it.
And just so you know, I mean, Jifa studied history, so she's like a walking.
I'm not like Raymond.
There's a history teacher.
Yes. So she's got a lot of information that you can learn from her, and I believe that is very useful. Nana Agyemang Rawlings. Now we're talking of a family woman whose impact in governance, I mean, we can see, and I believe you can speak to that as well. But then she moves away from her husband's founded party and forms her own party. Okay,
I think you have been you've done a triple jump.
I know,
because I think one of the things that we must acknowledge her for, which I think unfairly we have not, is the passing of PNDC Law 111.
Okay.
That is the Interstate Succession Law. This year, for International Women's Day, that law marked 25 years. So I happened to do a documentary about it. And for many of the activists I spoke to, one of whom was Professor Kufuor here, indicated how another lawyer also indicated that Sheila Minka-Premo indicated how Mrs. Rawlings went over and above the call of duty to make sure that law
I actually did jump. I wanted to introduce her soundbite from
I just feel that yes,
I know
we should
because I wanted us to come and talk about her role in governance, her role in her husband's governance. But then I wanted us to listen to what she said at the Accra Declaration, which was the peace pact. She had almost lost her voice, and I mean, her husband was there. I get the feeling like she was feeling a bit, you know, she felt like she wanted to be pampered or something. That's just me. But let's take a listen to Nana Agyemang Rawlings at the Accra Declaration.
In signing the peace document, the NDP that I represent and lead believes in people over politics. And this translates into the empowerment of the people, social justice, and integrity in all that we do. With empowerment, social justice, and integrity, we believe that we will definitely have peace. The NDP say thank you to the Peace Council and all who put the document together, and for the opportunity to keep our country safe and peaceful before, during, and after the elections. And after the elections.
And that's my moment. I mean,
I hear former President Rawlings gave her a rose at the event,
yeah,
as well as one to the PPP vice presidential candidate, Bridget.
Yeah. Let's talk about her role in her husband's. I mean, it appears they have a serious chemistry going on, you know, between herself and her husband, Mr. Rawlings.
If it had been now, we'd be calling them what, a power couple. Yeah. But yes, they are. I think she did, and Martha made reference to, I think, an interview she granted talking about the early days of the PNDC and the sacrifice she had to make. And then beyond that point, I think then she decided to set up the 31st December Women's Movement. And I think that rather propelled her almost to, you know, stardom, because she took time to go around all these villages, all these hamlets, trying to mobilize women. Political parties had always mobilized women. The Convention People's Party had done that. But I think she took it to a different level entirely, because this was not about a man asking women to come and do something. This was more about a woman asking these women to do things that would benefit them. And through it all, sought to build it into a political movement for her husband. So it became like the wing of the PNC, NDC. So that worked very well. I remember, I didn't grow up in Ghana, but on holidays when I came into town with my parents, I always remember seeing these visuals of all these red beret women going from village to village and then setting up all these nursery schools. And the most famous
December Women's Nursery School.
And the most famous one, Early Childhood Development Centers, exactly, Martha. So I remember that, particularly there was this famous one at Makola. Every time.
And it was strategic.
You know, and so the current head of the Market Women Association, Madam Nijan.
Nijan.
Yes, so she's the one there coordinating activities there. I interviewed her, I think, 3 years ago for a BBC documentary when the Queen, the 60th anniversary of the Queen, and so they came to Ghana to talk about her visits. Ghana is one of the few African countries she's visited twice, or should I say Commonwealth countries she's visited twice. So they came to Ghana and we spoke to her, and she talked about the schools, and so that was, and then she built these playgrounds as well. There was one popular one in Dansoman. I lived with my grandfather there, so I remember that particular playground as well. So she's somebody that had always been there, and she was there on her own. She didn't have to have Mr. Rawlings there with her.
Right, but then all of these things that she did, Martha, would benefit the governance of her husband.
Of course, she was doing it as a family person. She was thinking about, if the market woman has to go to market early in the morning,
who takes care of the child?
Who takes care of the child? So why not provide a school within the market so that the woman can take the child along? At that time, we were trying to promote early daycare because most people wanted the children to stay at home till 6 before they go to school. But the government wanted to promote FQ. And all that. So she comes in with this brilliant idea. Let's just send I don't want to say, I nearly said send a girl child to school. It wasn't the girl child. Let's send the children to school. But how can the woman send the child to school and not be late to go to the market? It means the school must be within the market so that the woman can pick up the child in good time and still have time for the child. I think being a mother also influenced some of the things she did. It went further to help the government because she was recognized as a first lady who was doing this, and people didn't see her as someone who is working in isolation. But someone who has been given, I guess if it was Nigeria, she could have done more because Nigerian first ladies have accounts. They have some money. They are formally resourced to do these things. So they have a treasury that takes care of them, but we don't have it here. But she still went ahead, and some of these things she did. She went out to mobilize the funds herself to do them, aside government also coming in to help her. So I think most of the things she did were to a large extent enhance the governance of the husband.
And of course, if you have all of these women who are on your side, they will vote for your husband.
And that's something that many people were critical of, especially critics of the PNDC, later on the NDC, because they felt that all of these were being funded with state money. And there was no accountability. And also there was a sense that she was not willing to also be accountable. So there were those who were critical of her motives in pursuing that agenda.
And she got involved in some legal
and then there were issues of acquisitions that were made on behalf of the movement, which for some were deemed to be shady. And there were also, we didn't see enough accountability in that aspect. Then there were also properties that the PNDC had seized, and I know that the 31st December Women's Movement benefited from some of the seized assets. I know there is one particular asset that is being contested.
So there's a lot of history.
So in as much as she did a lot of good, there's also the flip side that some people see negatively.
So this rich history that we've put out there about Nana Agyemang Rawlings, how would you say that impacted the recent elections? Because we can't isolate that from what has just happened.
That's her taking part.
Yes. Because I mean, she's moved, gone to form her own party. We didn't see her husband actively involved in the campaign of the NDC this year. And
neither was he involved in Naadu's campaign.
So how do we explain the dynamics?
For me, I think there's been a disconnect. When the NDC lost power in 2000, then came the test as to whether the 31st December Women's Movement was a propaganda machinery for the NDC, or it was a true women's movement that sought to empower women and to spur on the women's agenda. And unfortunately, after 2000, all that took a nosedive. And for critics, that was because there was no more state money coming in to support their activities. Then there was the other issue of the legal actions that were pursued against the 31st Movement's acquisitions. And then the other court actions about properties that they had acquired that were deemed not to belong to them, or they had not paid for them adequately. So I think all those things sought to destabilize the progression of the movement. But I understand they still had an administrative structure and all that as to why they couldn't just continue to mobilize. Then there's the other side of the what you call it, analysis, that some say, well, a lot of people were just pretending to be part of the 31st December just to benefit. And so when the NPP came to power in 2001, everybody stripped themselves
Let's try and direct it to
so what I'm trying to say is that with all these, over a 10-year period, it's like the movement almost died. And so for some reason, in as much as she went into politics, became a vice chairperson of the NDC, contested to be a flag bearer, formed her own party, all those things didn't seem to benefit her and have not benefited her political ambition. And I think that's the tragedy.
She makes a move. She makes a move. Martha, would you say that at this point there's any future for her in politics? Because we've seen her performance, her party's performance in this election. It wasn't, I mean, I didn't expect that.
It wasn't impressive. Just say it. She was last. But there were 7 people in class. She was last. Even the independent candidates who we didn't have any history of, performed better than Nana Konadu. And I think this is the time for her to just leave the political scene with whatever she got from this election. I don't think she's going to make any more impact if she decides to come again. If she wants to keep the NDP, I don't mind, but she should get
someone else to lead the party in terms of being a flag bearer.
So she can be the founder. Okay. Let's leave it as that. And then get someone who doesn't have the history she has. Because you know there are people who say, but your husband has been the president, you were very active in his government, in governance and everything. Why do you also want to get that opportunity? And if you're giving that opportunity to her daughter and didn't give it to her, it means it will take forever for her to get that one. So I think at this moment, she should just leave the political scene and do something else. I think she has wealth of experience. She can get young ladies and groom
them into
other
leadership,
things to do with that experience she has. It will help.
Thank you very much, Martha. We spent a lot of time talking about Nana Konadu, Agyemang, Rawlings. Well, that tells you her impact, not just in governance, I mean, as a family woman and as a woman in her own merit. We'll be talking to Gifty Auntie, like I said. We'll talk to Abantu, find out what they make of all of these. There is Teresa Kufuor to talk about, there is Madam Naadu Mills to talk about, there is Lordina Mahama, and then we zoom into the incoming First Lady, Rebecca Kufuor. Let me just give you a brief on Madam Teresa Kufuor. She started her education at the Catholic convent Ola at Keta in the Volta region of Ghana. She later went to London, where she was educated as a registered general nurse in the Southern Hospital Group of Nursing, Edinburgh, Scotland. Teresa Kufuor has 5 sons with John Kufuor, who is a former president, of course, and they are John Adu Kufuor, Nanama Jemfi, Sa Kufuor, Agyemang Kufuor, and Owuswe Fuye Kufuor. Despite being the first lady for 8 years, she has managed to maintain a low profile in the political arena. In 2007, she pushed for policy changes in government's white paper on educational reforms towards the implementation of UNESCO's free compulsory education program for kindergarten children. She founded the Mother and Child Community Development Foundation, a non-governmental organization operating in Ghana and Canada that supports work in the prevention of mother-to-child transmission. Following the Panama Papers incident that first came to public notice in April 2016, Teresa was cited as a beneficiary to a Panamanian bank account of her first son, John Adu Kufuor, worth $75,000. In October 25, Pope Benedict conferred on her husband, President Kufuor, the Papal Award of Knight Commander of Saint Gregory the Great for his dedicated service to mankind and the Catholic Church in general. Teresa Kufuor, on her part, was awarded the Papal Award Dame of Saint Gregory the Great for her commitment to the plight of poor children and their mothers. I'm going to go through that of Naadu Mills so that we can put the two of them together, looking at the time that we have. Madam Ernestina Naadu Mills is an educator. She's a former First Lady, of course. She was the wife of former Ghanaian President President John Atta Mills, and is a recipient of a humanitarian award from the Health Legend Foundation. She was born in Accra to Cornelius Taiboche and Madam Alberta Abecho Abbey, and attended a Brigel school on scholarship. After she got her certificate, she spent 2 years training as a teacher and specialist training college in Winneba. She taught at Kotobabi, one mixed middle school for 2 years, then returned to STC to obtain a diploma in home economics. After graduating, she returned to a Brigel school to teach clothing and textile design for 9 years. Her husband, of course, was presidential running mate to Jerry John Rawlings when he ran for the second term in 1996. So that made her the second lady. Then she became the First Lady from 2009 to 2012. President Mills, of course, we know, died 2012 in office. So, Madame Naadu Mills and Teresa Kufuor, let's talk about the two of them. Okay.